Hey guys, it's Matt Kubler with MaxOut Domestic Franchising and MaxOut Strength Systems. Just wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how we deploy the MaxOut tower in a collegiate or pro or high school strength room. Most of the time it's going to be utilized in a squat rack, which I have here, but we also utilize it on a half rack, which is basically half of a squat rack. But they work identical regardless of whether or not it's attached to a half or a full squat rack. So what I wanted to do is show you how we attach it, how it's utilized, the pieces that we manufacture depending on the type of squat rack it's going to be attached to. So if you look up here, you'll see this white attachment. This is a pre-manufactured that we create for the MaxOut attachment pieces. There's no drilling whatsoever. It's all based on bracketry and clamps. We utilize pulleys and cables to attach to a squat rack bar. We utilize chain link in order to adjust for proper depth for depending on individual users' height and leg distance that it has to move. We utilize the chain link in order to adjust for that. If you come around, you'll see we attach with a D-ring to a clamp here on the squat rack. It goes straight up into a pulley system on the new white piece of attachment points that we created. And then the cable comes straight down into the MaxOut tower itself. This is how we're able to create the two different weights, one during the eccentric, one during the concentric. Hey guys, now we're going to talk about how, as a lifter, you're going to engage with the tower. As a strength coach, you're going to find out the 1 rep max for, say, the squat rack, and find out exactly what your athlete or your soldier is able to lift maximally one time. So you're going to go through a series of tests with the weight on the bar without the tower being engaged. Once you find out what the 1 rep max is, then you're able to figure out percentage-wise off of that 1 rep max how much needs to go on the bar during the eccentric load and how much assistance during the concentric is required by the MaxOut tower. We'll use an example. If you have 200 pounds on the squat rack, which is say 80% of their 1 rep max, you need to then find out what percentage you're requiring based on your protocols, how much you need them to lift for, say, a set of 12. At MaxOut, we have our own methodology that we utilize, which might be a little bit different than what you do, but because we manufacture equipment, we spend a lot of time trying to create a program with the help of Mike Barwas from Barwas Methods to figure out how to best utilize the MaxOut tower in conjunction with an annual strength protocol. The MaxOut tower itself, like I said, is a counterweight, mechanical, computer-driven device that allows you to have a measured amount of concentric assistance during any one repetition. So you could conceivably have 300 pounds on the bar and 100 pounds of assistance. So you would lower 300, raise 200. It all depends on the methodology you choose to use and how much percentage on each side of either the eccentric or the concentric that you want to utilize during any one repetition. So if you're going to, for us, we want to program the user's stroke length, meaning when they come off the rack, where their starting position is at the top of the squat and then at the bottom of the squat. So we're going to measure based on where they are in their own height, so the distance that they have to travel from straight leg to bent knee. Once you figure that out, you're then going to program the amount of assistance that you need within the tower itself. On our MaxOut tower, we use 10-pound increments. All we have to do is change the pin when the weight stack is homed, which means the silver block and all the black blocks here, the weights are all touching. I can easily pull in and out the weight pin. If I want to put 100 pounds of assistance in, I put it in the 110 so that anything below the pin is the weight that drops. So if I had 200 pounds on the bar and I wanted 50 pounds of assistance, simply put it into the 60. It's easily started through a digital touchpad where everybody's measurements can be measured for infinitum. There's actually no length of time that it won't be stored for until you erase it itself, which is one of the keys for us. So if you have an athlete that's going to be there for 4 years and you give them a programmed number that is their number, they can easily just hit that number and that'll set the parameters like we talked about from the top of the squat to the bottom of the squat for them, and it'll stay there forever. The reason why it's important to measure is because for us, we want to make sure that throughout the entire motion of that exercise, that the tower remains engaged. We don't ever want a time when the tower turns off on its assistance. The only way we'll ever turn off is if you hit both of those pre-programmed points. which is a safety mechanism for us. All right, so Mason's going to get measured to do the squat exercise. So he's going to get underneath the bar, get himself set up. He's going to bring the bar up off the rack. He's going to step back. So what we want to make sure that we get here is a vertical pull, so that this connection point in the back of the bar and the top of the pulley are perfectly straight. Mason, take a half step forward. Right there, perfect. You're going to see he's in a good setup position. One thing we found out when utilizing two different weights and utilizing the tower is that when you set parameters, especially the top parameter, as athletes begin to fatigue, they're not getting completely vertical with their legs. So what we do is we account for a little bit of fatigue, and we have our athletes bend their knees a little bit slightly in order to begin that to make that the measurement point for the top. Bend your knees a little bit, Mace. Perfect. So we hit the measurement point there. I'm going to have him go down to the bottom of his squat. I'm going to hit the measurement point there. He's going to stand up and rack the bar. Now the tower is memorized. It has his stroke length memorized. We can now add the weight to the bar, and we can add the assistance to the tower in order to provide the proper amount of eccentric and concentric load to the body. Mason here, one of our coaches, he's going to do an exercise, a couple reps on the exercise for us. We just picked a number, 285 of his 1 rep max, which obviously isn't. Look at him. But I did that just to show how 225 on the bar and what percentage that would be of a 1 rep max. 225 on the bar for a set of 12 would be 80% of his 1 rep max. So if 285 was obviously his 1 rep max, we put 225 on the bar, and that's what he would lower. In order to get the amount that we're utilizing on the tower, we utilize a 55% of what we want him to lift. So we would lower 225, which is 80% of the 1 rep max, and then we want him to lift 55% of that 1 rep max, which comes out to about 156 pounds. So in order to get the difference between the 225 and 156, it comes out to 70. 70 pounds is the amount of assistance we're going to utilize in the tower. We spot on every single rep because we believe safety is paramount. Once you hit fatigue, right there is good. Chest up, chin up, down slow. 3, 2, 1, drive up, good. Reset and down. 3, 2, 1, drive up, 2. Good. So we would do a set of 12 at these percentages. Now, if this percentage was correct and he needed to do a max strength, which is our pause press, it would look something similar to this. He would go down in a controlled fashion, but not like a hypertrophy set, a little bit quicker. Down, 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 down. Hold, go, drive up, boom, good. Down, 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 hold, go. Come on, drive, 2. Got one more in you. Let's go. Down. Down, 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 down. Hold. Go. Come on. Drive up. Good. And rack. Just like with the squat rack and the bench press, we can hook to anything. Measuring an athlete's motion and the length of their leg motion or their arm motion, depending on the piece of equipment they're on, is a little bit different when you're talking with a selectorized piece. So for us on the bench or the squat rack, you would measure, first measurement would be in the straight arm or straight leg position. Whereas if you're on a piece of equipment like a leg curl or a lat pull down or a row, it's actually, they're going to have to move weight first in order to get the first measurement. So on the leg curl, you would have the lifter curl the weight up to the 90-degree position in order to create the first measurement point. And then from the static is the second measurement point. Same thing for the lat pull down, they would have to pull the weight to their chest in order to establish that first measurement. All you do is just put a light enough weight for them to move so it's not any type of struggle. Very simple process. And then it works exactly the same as it would on any other piece of equipment. The only difference is the assistance occurs immediately because you're moving weight as your first movement rather than lowering weight. So that's really the only difference between a piece like this, which has the selectorized equipment on it with the weight stack, versus free weight. They're the only two differences we have. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about what we do at MaxOut as far as methodology. 5 years ago, we were fortunate enough to become business partners with Mike Barwis. Many of you may know him as the former strength and conditioning coach at West Virginia University and at the University of Michigan. And he's also the founder of Barwis Methods. We're very lucky to be partners with him because we believe he is one of the smartest men on the planet, and he's obviously very well aware of how the body works in athletics. And he's been a leader in creating methodology that is changing the way people train their body. More specifically, he's created a process for us that we utilize in conjunction with our MaxOut tower that allows us to do something to the body in a very short period of time with maximal performance output. Our goal here at MaxOut is to create as much muscle and force production as possible in the least amount of time possible. Utilizing our methodology that we utilize here at MaxOut and what bar was created for us, we use a very specific amount of percentage on each end of the repetition. On the eccentric, obviously it's a heavier weight, so it's a higher percentage. It's all based off the 1 rep max capability. So whether it's the bench press or the squat rack, leg curl, seated row, it doesn't matter. Tower, if a tower is attached to it, we can create those two different dynamics, a heavier weight on the down and a lighter weight on the up. In hypertrophy, which we utilize a 4-count negative, we utilize percentages in order to get 12 to 8 repetitions during those 4-count negatives. So for say like a set of 12 in the first week of hypertrophy, your first set would be an 80% of your 1 rep max on the eccentric and 55% of your 1 rep max on the concentric. Just simple math. It's not rocket science on how to put the weight. The tower would then be the difference between the concentric and eccentric number. Whatever that delta is what you utilize as your assistance. So if it's, say, 225 is 80% of 285 and 155 is 55% of that, then the difference between those two numbers is 70 pounds, which is what we provided here on the tower during the example that Mason gave doing the hypertrophy step. Those percentages change depending on the number of repetitions. We also have built-in back-down weeks. We have a whole bunch of different variables that go into play during hypertrophy. We do that for about 6 weeks, and then we go into what we call our max strength phase, which is an 8-week phase, and that is 8 reps down to 4 reps. And we utilize the pause press, as you saw Mason do in the video demonstration as well. Those percentages are obviously more intense and designed to create more force production and to recruit more neural fibers in order to move the weight quickly in a shorter period of time. We also have an in-season program, which we utilize here in our studio environment for our franchising model. It's 5 exercises. It's the squat, the bench press, the leg curl, the seated row, and the lat pull down. What we found is when we test an athlete prior to their season, that's after they've done all their preseason workouts and strength gain processes, that they are at their physical peak when the season begins. That's our goal. We test them on that day that we transition them into the in-season program. Depending on how long their season is, sometimes it's 3 months, 5 months, depending on how good they are and how far they've gone into the postseason. But regardless of that, every single athlete that's ever trained at one of our MaxOut Strength Studios and been on the in-season program has gotten stronger coming out of the season than they were in the season. So we take the entire totality of their body, we average out the percentage of increase, and it always comes out to where they got stronger overall than they do weaker, which is an anomaly. Very few athletes can ever say that they come out of a season feeling stronger than they did when it started. That's just crazy, right? You've just gotten the crap beaten out of you for 5 months. It's survival of the fittest to get to the championship. Usually the team that wins is the one that's the healthiest. Granted, talent and all that is involved in coaching and strategy and all those things, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the horses at the end, you're not going to win. Our goal is to create an environment where you have a better chance of having the horses at the end than you do if you don't utilize our technology. That's all we're trying to say. It has nothing to do with strategy, X's and O's, coaching, talent. It has everything to do with keeping your athletes stronger, keeping them healthier, and having them at their peak throughout the course of a season rather than hitting their peak only at the beginning and then slowly declining to the very end.